January 4th, 1945. The sky over Kobe, Formosa. Lieutenant Charles August banks his F-6F Hellcat hard to starboard, altitude 1,500 feet. Below, Japanese installations sprawl across the airfield. His throttle is pushed forward, 2,000 horsepower. From the Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp roars through the fuselage. Speed climbs, 400 miles per hour. 420, 440. The air screams past the canopy. He lines up for the strafing run. A sudden jolt. Ground fire. 20mm shells hammer the belly. The engine coughs. Oil pressure drops. Temperature climbs. Red, then crimson. August pulls the stick, tries to gain altitude, but the Hellcat shudders. Smoke trails from the cowling. The choice is brutal. Bail out over enemy territory or try for a landing. He chooses the landing. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The wheels touch dirt. Hard, the Hellcat bounces, skids, the right gear collapses, metal screeches, sparks shower. The aircraft slides 300 feet and grinds to a stop. August kicks the canopy open, jumps, runs. Behind him, Japanese soldiers emerge from the tree line, rifles raised. He raises his hands. His war is over. But the story of his Hellcat, Bureau number 71441, has only begun. The Japanese drag the aircraft to Yokosuka Naval Air Base. Engineers swarm over it. They measure. They photograph. They strip panels. They test the guns. What they discover stuns them. This is not just another American fighter. This is a weapon system designed to destroy everything they have built. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. March 1942, Farmingdale, New York, Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation. The design team gathers around blueprints. The problem is clear. The F-4F Wildcat, their current carrier fighter, is being slaughtered over the Pacific. Japanese Zeros dance around Wildcats like hawks around pigeons. The Zero is light, agile, fast in the turn. The Wildcat is slower, heavier, less maneuverable. But the Wildcat has one advantage. It can take punishment. Armor protects the pilot. Self-sealing fuel tanks prevent fires. The Zero has none of this. A few bullets, and it burns. The question facing Grumman is simple. How do you take the Wildcat's survivability and combine it with the power needed to kill a Zero? The answer arrives in the form of a massive radial engine, Pratt & Whitney's R2800 Double Wasp, 18 cylinders, 2 rows, 2,000 horsepower, the same engine powering the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt in Europe. The engine weighs over 1 ton. Installing it means redesigning everything. The fuselage must be wider, the wings larger, the landing gear stronger. The result is not a Wildcat, it is something entirely new. On June 26, 1942, the XF-6F-1 prototype lifts off from Bethpage Field. Test pilot Bob Hall pushes the throttle. The Hellcat accelerates, climbs. At 15,000 feet, he opens it up. Speed reaches 380 miles per hour, faster than any carrier fighter the Navy has. Hall smiles. The beast flies. But speed is only part of the equation. The Navy wants firepower. The F-4F Wildcat carries 6 50-caliber machine guns, 3 in each wing, 400 rounds per gun. The Hellcat will carry the same, 6 Browning M2 50-caliber guns. But there is a difference. The Hellcat's guns are mounted further apart in wider wings. The convergence point can be set for longer range, and the ammunition capacity is generous, 400 rounds per gun, 2,400 rounds total. Each gun fires at roughly 800 rounds per minute. 6 guns together deliver 4,800 rounds per minute, 80 rounds per second. The 50 caliber Browning fires a bullet weighing roughly 46 grams at 2,800 feet per second. The kinetic energy of a single bullet is over 18,000 joules. 80 bullets per second means 1.4 million joules of energy per second. That is the power of a small car hitting a wall at 60 miles per hour every second. But energy is abstract. What matters is what happens when those bullets hit a target. The 50 caliber API, armor-piercing incendiary, round has a steel core. It penetrates 15 millimeters of armor at 500 meters. The Zero has no armor. Its fuel tanks are not self-sealing. Its structure is aluminum, thin, designed for weight savings. A burst from 650 caliber guns does not just damage a Zero, it disintegrates it. American test pilots at the Naval Air Station Patuxent River in Maryland run comparative trials. They pit the Hellcat against a captured Zero, recovered from the Aleutians. The Zero, an A6M2 Model 21, was found nearly intact on Akutan Island in July 1942. Navy engineers repaired it, pilots flew it, they learned its secrets. The Zero's top speed is 335 miles per hour. The Hellcat's is 380. The Zero climbs faster below 14,000 feet. Above that, the Hellcat matches it. The Zero turns tighter, much tighter. At low speed, it can outturn anything the Americans have, but the Hellcat has one crushing advantage. At high speed, above 240 miles per hour, its ailerons respond faster, it can roll quicker, and in a dive, the Hellcat is untouchable. The Zero's control surfaces stiffen above 300 miles per hour. The pilot cannot maneuver. The Hellcat dives at 450 miles per hour and still responds to the stick. The conclusion is clear. Do not dogfight a Zero. Do not try to turn with it. Attack from above. Use speed. Use altitude. Dive. Fire. Climb. Repeat. This becomes American doctrine, and it works. August 1943, the Pacific Theater, the first F-6F Hellcats deploy aboard USS Independence. Air Group 6 prepares for combat. And the pilots are young, confident, trained, but untested. On September 1st, they fly their first mission, a strike against a Japanese seaplane. The target, a Kawanishi H-8K Emily, heavily armed, well protected. The Hellcats attack, 6 guns per aircraft, 36 guns total. The Emily does not stand a chance. It explodes in mid-air. The pilots return. No losses. 2 months later, November 23rd, the battle for Tarawa. Japanese Zeros rise to intercept American bombers. The Hellcats are there. 48 aircraft, flying cover. The Zeros attack. The Hellcats dive. The altitude advantage is theirs. They slash through the Japanese formation. 6 guns per aircraft, 30 rounds per second per aircraft. The Zeros scatter, try to turn, try to evade, but the Hellcat pilots do not follow them into the turning fight. They climb, reset, dive again. By the end of the engagement, 30 Zeros are claimed destroyed. 1 Hellcat is lost. The exchange ratio stuns even the American commanders, 30-1. This is not a fluke. This is the new reality. December 1943, Yokosuka Naval Air Base, Japan. Engineers receive reports from the front. The Americans have a new fighter, faster than the Zero, heavier, more powerful. The descriptions are alarming, but without a captured example. The Japanese can only speculate. They increase production of the A6M5, the latest Zero variant, thicker wingskins, modified ailerons, slightly faster. But fundamentally, it is still the same aircraft. Light, agile, unarmored. The Japanese believe the Zero's maneuverability will win. They train pilots to exploit the turning fight, get close, turn inside the enemy. A quick burst from the 20mm cannon. Victory. This works against the Wildcat. It fails catastrophically against the Hellcat. June 19th, 1944. The Battle of the Philippine Sea. The largest carrier battle in history. The Japanese launch 450 aircraft. The Americans have 900. Most are Hellcats. The Japanese pilots are younger now, less experienced. Fuel shortages have cut training hours. Many have fewer than 100 hours of flight time. The American pilots have 300 or more. The Japanese bombers approach the American fleet. The Hellcats intercept, altitude 25,000 feet. The American pilots roll into dives. Speed builds, 400 miles per hour, 420, 450. The Japanese formation breaks. Zeros try to engage. But the Hellcats are not dogfighting. They are executing. Dive, fire, climb, reset. The carnage is absolute. In one day, the Japanese lose 300 aircraft. The Americans lose 30, most to ground fire. The Hellcat pilots claim nearly 300 kills. The battle is nicknamed the Great Marianas. Turkey shoot. It is not a fight. It is a slaughter. Among the American pilots, Lieutenant Alexander Vrasiu of Air Group 16, flying Hellcat Bureau, number 40,467, on June 19th, he downs 6 Japanese aircraft in 8 minutes, all zeros, all victims of the 6 50 caliber guns. His wingman, Ensign Homer Brockmeyer, gets 3 more. Together, they destroy 9 aircraft in one mission. Neither takes a hit. Vrasiu later describes the engagement. We caught them climbing. We had altitude. We dove. I lined up on the leader, pressed the trigger. 2 seconds, maybe 3. The wings came off, then the tail. The rest just burned. I pulled up, climbed, found another. Same thing. It wasn't a dogfight, it was execution. The Japanese pilots who survive report back. The American fighter is unlike anything they have faced. It does not turn. It does not engage. It strikes from above. By the time you see it, it is too late. The bullets do not wound. They destroy. Fuselages shred. Wings tear off. Fires erupt instantly. And the American pilots do not stay. They climb, disappear, reappear, attack again. By late 1944, the Japanese have captured 1 intact Hellcat, August aircraft, Bureau number 71,441. It arrives at Yokosuka. Engineers paint it with Japanese markings. Tail code Yo 801. The Hinomaru, the red circle, replaces the American star. Test pilots prepare to fly it. Lieutenant Commander Teruo Miyoshi, a veteran pilot with over 1,000 hours in zeros, climbs into the cockpit. The first thing he notices is the size. The Hellcat is massive. The cockpit sits high. Visibility is excellent. Forward, up, down, side to side. The Zero's cockpit is cramped. Visibility is limited. The Hellcat feels like sitting in a watchtower. He starts the engine. The R2800 roars. The vibration is powerful, steady, reassuring. He taxis. The Hellcat is heavy. The controls are stiff. Nothing like the Zero's light, responsive touch. He takes off, climbs. At 5,000 feet, he levels off, pushes the throttle. The Hellcat accelerates. Fast, faster. He glances at the airspeed indicator, 360 miles per hour. Still climbing. He pulls back. The Hellcat climbs sharply, not as sharply as the Zero, but powerfully, inexorably. He tries a turn. The Hellcat responds. Slowly, deliberately. It will not outturn a Zero, not even close, but at high speed, above 250 miles per hour. The ailerons bite. He rolls. Fast, faster than a Zero can roll at that speed. He understands. This is not a dogfighter. This is a striker. Then he tests the guns. The armorer has loaded belts, 200 rounds per gun. He climbs to 10,000 feet, lines up on a cloud, presses the trigger. The Hellcat shudders. The recoil is immense. The noise deafening, even with ear protection. 6 guns, 4,800 rounds per minute. The tracers streak away. A cone of fire, solid, unbroken. He releases the trigger after 2 seconds, checks the ammunition. Counter, over 100 rounds fired, he calculates. 2 seconds, 160 rounds. If those rounds hit a Zero, there would be nothing left. He lands, climbs out. The other engineers gather. He speaks slowly, carefully. This aircraft is not built to fight like we fight. It is built to kill from a distance, from above. The pilot does not need to be skillful in maneuvering. He only needs to position correctly. Dive, fire, climb. The guns do everything else. Against this, the Zero has no answer. The engineers ask, can we build something similar? Miyoshi shakes his head. Not in time. We lack the engine. We lack the industrial capacity. We lack the armor, the self-sealing tanks, the manufacturing precision. This is not just an aircraft. It is the product of an industrial system we cannot match. The captured Hellcat flies several more test missions. Each time the conclusion is the same. Superior speed, superior firepower, superior protection. The Zero can outturn it. But in combat, turning is not enough. The Hellcat dictates the terms of engagement. It chooses when to fight, when to disengage, when to kill. The Zero can only react. In one test, Japanese engineers fire captured American .50 caliber rounds at a Zero fuselage, distance 300 meters. They fire 10 rounds. All 10 penetrate. The aluminum skin offers no resistance. The internal structure is shredded. Fuel lines rupture. Control cables sever. They conclude that a single 2-second burst from a Hellcat, approximately 160 rounds, would result in catastrophic structural failure of a Zero. Pilot survival unlikely. The Japanese desperately try to upgrade the Zero. The A6M7 variant receives minor armor protection, a small plate behind the pilot, thicker wing skins, but it is too little. The armor adds weight. The Zero becomes slower, less agile, and still it cannot withstand a burst from 650 caliber guns. Meanwhile, American production roars. Grumman's factory at Bethpage operates 24 hours a day, 3 shifts, 7 days a week. At peak production, one Hellcat rolls off the assembly line every hour. 12,275 Hellcats are built between 1942 and 1945. Japan produces 6,000 A6M5 and A6M7 Zeros in the same period. The numbers tell the story. For every Zero, there are 2 Hellcats, and each Hellcat is flown by a pilot with 300 hours of training, each Zero by a pilot with 100 hours or less. Experience, numbers, technology, all favor the Americans. January 1945, the skies over Luzon, Philippines. F-6F Hellcats escort B-25 bombers. Japanese Zeros intercept. The Hellcats dive. The Zeros scatter. Some try to turn and fight. Fatal mistake. The Hellcats do not follow. They climb. Reset. Dive again. Within minutes, 15 Zeros are down. 2 Hellcats are damaged. None are lost. 1 Japanese pilot, warrant officer, Saburo Sakai, a veteran with over 60 kills, later writes in his memoir, "The American Hellcat changed everything. Against the Wildcat, we could win with skill. Against the Hellcat, skill was not enough. They did not fight us. They executed us. You could not turn away. They were too fast. You could not climb away. They matched you. You could not dive away. They followed. The only option was to evade. Hope they ran out of ammunition. Hope they made a mistake. But they rarely did." February 1945. The war is nearly over. The Hellcat has claimed over 5,000 enemy aircraft destroyed. 75% of all U.S. Navy air-to-air victories in the Pacific. The kill-to-loss ratio is 19-1. For every Hellcat lost in combat, 19 enemy aircraft are destroyed. No other fighter in history has achieved such numbers, and it is not just the aircraft. It is the system, the training, the tactics, the industrial might. The Hellcat embodies all of it. It is not the fastest fighter. The Corsair is faster. It is not the most maneuverable. The Zero turns tighter, but it is the most effective. It kills. It survives. It returns. At Yokosuka, the captured Hellcat sits in a hangar. Japanese engineers have learned everything they can, but learning and replicating are different. They lack the engines. They lack the armor. They lack the time. By March, the Hellcat is damaged beyond repair after another test flight, a mechanical failure, a belly landing. The Japanese push it aside. It will remain there until American forces occupy the base in September 1945. When American soldiers find it, they photograph it. Bureau number 71004-41. Painted with Japanese markings, a symbol of how thoroughly the Hellcat dominated the Pacific skies. The aircraft is eventually scrapped, but its legacy endures. The F-6F Hellcat did not win the Pacific War alone, but it was the weapon that broke Japanese air power. It allowed the American fleet to operate without fear. It escorted bombers deep into enemy territory. It destroyed hundreds of aircraft on the ground. It sank ships. It supported landings. And it brought pilots home. 305 American pilots became aces flying the Hellcat. 5 or more kills. Captain David McCampbell, the Navy's top ace, scored all 34 of his victories in a Hellcat. He once shot down 9 Japanese aircraft in a single mission. His guns never jammed. His aircraft never failed. He landed with 10 gallons of fuel remaining. After the war, Hellcats remained in service until the early 1950s. Jets replaced them. But for a brief moment, the Hellcat was the king of the carrier deck, faster than the enemy, better armed, better protected, flown by better trained pilots, supported by better logistics, backed by an industrial system that produced them faster than the enemy could shoot them down. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The numbers behind the Hellcat tell a story of industrial dominance that Japan could never match. Between October 1942 and November 1945, Grumman produced 12,275 F6F Hellcats. At peak production in 1944, one Hellcat rolled off the assembly line every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The factory at Bethpage, Long Island, operated continuously. 3 shifts. Workers, many of them women, riveted wings, installed engines, fitted guns. The plant was still being constructed even as the first aircraft were being built. Compare this to Japanese production. Between 1943 and 1945, Japan produced approximately 10,500 Zeros of all variants, but the numbers alone do not tell the full story. American factories had resources: aluminum, steel, rubber, oil. Japan had shortages. By 1944, Japanese industry was operating under constant bombing. Factories were destroyed faster than they could be rebuilt. Raw materials were scarce. Shipping routes were cut. The empire was strangling. And then there is the matter of pilot training. In 1942, an American naval aviator received approximately 300 hours of flight training before deployment. He flew multiple aircraft types, practiced gunnery, learned navigation, studied tactics. By the time he reached a carrier, he was proficient, not perfect, but competent. A Japanese pilot in 1942 received similar training, sometimes more. The pre-war Japanese naval aviators were among the best in the world. Skilled, experienced, deadly, but attrition changed everything. By 1944, experienced Japanese pilots were dead. The veterans who flew at Pearl Harbor, at Midway, at Guadalcanal, most were gone. Their replacements received fewer than 100 hours of training, some as few as 50. Fuel shortages meant less flying time, fewer practice hours, less experience. A Japanese pilot in 1944 was sent into combat barely able to fly, let alone fight. The result was predictable. American pilots with 300 hours of training, flying Hellcats, faced Japanese pilots with 50 hours of training, flying Zeros. The outcome was not combat, it was massacre. The Battle of the Philippine Sea on June 19, 1944, proved this brutally. The Japanese launched 450 aircraft. The Americans had over 900, most of them Hellcats. The Japanese pilots were ordered to attack the American carriers. They never reached them. The Hellcats intercepted at high altitude, dove, fired, climbed, repeated. The Japanese formation disintegrated. Planes fell like rain. Some pilots never even saw what hit them. Others tried to turn, to fight, but the Hellcats refused to engage in turning battles. They dictated the terms: attack, disengage, reset. By the end of the day, the Japanese lost 300 aircraft. The Americans lost 30, most to anti-aircraft fire. The Hellcat pilots claimed 290 kills. The battle was nicknamed the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. The name was not hyperbole. It was accurate. One pilot, Lieutenant Alexander Vratsiu of Air Group 16, shot down 6 Japanese aircraft in 8 minutes, all Yokosuka D-4Y duty dive bombers. He attacked from above. Dove. Lined up, pressed the trigger. 2 seconds. The first duty disintegrated. Wings tore off. Fuselage broke apart. He climbed. Found another. Dove. Fired. Same result. 6 aircraft. 8 minutes. He landed aboard USS Lexington, with ammunition remaining. He had not been hit. Not even close. Vrasiu later said, "It was not a fight. It was target practice. They flew straight. They did not evade. They did not know we were there until the bullets hit. By then, it was over." Another pilot, Ensign Wilbur Spiderweb, described the same engagement. "I saw Zeros trying to turn away, but they were too slow. We dove at 450 miles per hour. They were doing maybe 200. By the time they started their turn, we were already firing. I got 3. My wingman got 2. We climbed, came back, got 2 more. It felt wrong, like shooting fish in a barrel. But this was war, and we had a job to do." The Japanese High Command understood the situation. Reports from the front were clear. The Hellcat was superior in nearly every measurable way. Speed, firepower, protection, pilot quality, numbers. The only advantage the Zero retained was turning performance at low speed. But in combat, that advantage was meaningless. The Hellcat pilots did not dogfight. They executed. Japanese engineers proposed solutions: upgrade the Zero, add armor, install self-sealing tanks, increase engine power. But each addition added weight, and weight reduced the Zero's only remaining advantage, its agility. The A6M7, the final production variant, had a small armor plate behind the pilot and thicker wing skins, but it was heavier, slower, less maneuverable, and still, it could not withstand a burst from 650 caliber guns. Other solutions were attempted. New aircraft designs, the Kawanishi N1K Shiden, George, the Mitsubishi J2M Raiden, Jack, both were faster than the Zero, better armed, more robust. But production was limited, resources were scarce, and pilot training remained inadequate. A better aircraft in the hands of an inexperienced pilot is still vulnerable. By 1945, the Japanese situation was desperate. The Hellcat ruled the skies. American carriers operated with impunity. Strikes hit Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya. Japanese airfields were bombed daily. Aircraft were destroyed on the ground faster than they could be replaced. Pilots were killed before they completed their first missions. The captured Hellcat at Yokosuka became a symbol of this disparity. Japanese engineers studied it, measured it, flew it, and understood. This was not just an aircraft. It was the product of an industrial system they could not replicate. The engine alone required manufacturing precision Japan lacked. The armor required steel Japan did not have. The self-sealing tanks required rubber Japan could not import, and the training required time and fuel Japan no longer possessed. Lieutenant Commander Miyoshi, after his test flights, wrote a report. It was classified, distributed to high command. The conclusion was blunt. The F6F Hellcat represents a level of industrial and technical capability we cannot match. Its superiority is not merely in design, but in the entire system that produces it. Engine, armor, armament, training, logistics, all are integrated, all are superior. Our only option is to avoid engagement or to employ tactics that negate their advantages. But given their numerical superiority and operational flexibility, such tactics are increasingly impossible. The report was filed. Nothing changed. Japan had no options left. The final months of the war saw the Hellcat in a new role, not just as a fighter, but as a ground attack aircraft. F6, F5 variants could carry 2,000 pounds of bombs or 6 5-inch rockets. They struck airfields, ships, trains, bridges, supply depots. The Hellcat became a multi-role platform. Fighter, bomber, reconnaissance. It did everything. In February 1945, Hellcats supported the invasion of Iwo Jima. They flew combat air patrols above the island, struck Japanese positions, escorted bombers, protected the fleet. For 36 days, Hellcats operated continuously. In March, they supported Okinawa. Same pattern: air patrols, ground strikes, fleet defense. The Japanese threw everything at the American fleet: kamikazes, conventional bombers, torpedo planes. The Hellcats intercepted them, shot them down. The kill ratios remained staggering: 15 to 1, 20 to 1, some days 30 to 1. On April 12, 1945, Hellcat pilots from USS Bennington engaged a formation of Japanese aircraft over Okinawa. 20 Zeros and 10 bombers. The Hellcats numbered 16. The engagement lasted 12 minutes. All 10 bombers were destroyed. 15 Zeros were shot down. The remaining 5 fled. Not a single Hellcat was lost. One pilot, Lieutenant J. George James Sweat, downed 4 aircraft in one pass. He dove from 20,000 feet, lined up on a bomber, fired. It exploded. He continued through the formation, lined up on another, fired. Same result. 4 kills, 1 pass, 10 seconds of firing. Sweat landed back aboard Bennington. His guns were nearly empty, his aircraft undamaged. He climbed out. A mechanic asked, "How many?" Sweat held up 4 fingers. The mechanic nodded. Another routine mission. By May 1945, Japanese air power was effectively destroyed. The Hellcat had done its job. Over 66,000 combat sorties flown, 5,163 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air, approximately 5,000 more destroyed on the ground or damaged, 6,503 tons of bombs dropped, over 60,000 rockets fired. The numbers are staggering. The Hellcat did not just contribute to the war effort, it dominated an entire theater. The cost was significant, but manageable. 270 Hellcats were lost in aerial combat, another 300 to anti-aircraft fire, approximately 700 more to operational accidents. Total losses, around 1,270 aircraft. Against those losses, the Hellcat destroyed over 10,000 enemy aircraft. The kill-to-loss ratio in air combat was 19 to 1. For every Hellcat lost, 19 enemy aircraft were destroyed. No other fighter in history has achieved such numbers, and the pilots survived. Of the Hellcat pilots shot down, many were rescued. The aircraft's robust construction meant that even when hit, pilots often had time to bail out. The self-sealing tanks prevented fires, the armor protected vital areas, the strong airframe held together under damage. Pilots called the Hellcat the airplane that brought you home. It was not the fastest, not the most glamorous, but it was reliable. And in war, reliability saves lives. 305 American pilots became aces flying the Hellcat, 5 or more kills. The top ace, Captain David McCampbell, scored all 34 of his victories in Hellcats. He flew F6F3 and F6F5 variants. His aircraft, Bureau number 70,143, was named Mincy III. On October 24, 1944, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, McCampbell and his wingman, Ensign Roy Rushing, engaged a large Japanese formation, over 60 aircraft. McCampbell and Rushing were alone, low on fuel, but they attacked. McCampbell dove, lined up on a zero, fired, it exploded. He climbed, dove again, another zero. Same result. He repeated the process, again and again. His ammunition ran low. He conserved bursts, 1 second, 2 seconds, just enough. By the end of the engagement, he had shot down 9 aircraft, 7 Zeros, 2 Nakajima Ki-43 Oscars. Rushing got 6, 15 aircraft destroyed, 2 Hellcats, no losses. McCampbell landed aboard USS Essex with 10 gallons of fuel remaining, enough for maybe 2 more minutes of flight. His guns were empty. His aircraft had taken no hits. He climbed out. The deck crew counted the victories. 9, a single mission record. McCampbell received the Medal of Honor. But he always credited the Hellcat. "The airplane did the work," he said. "I just aimed it." After the war, the Hellcat remained in service. The U.S. Navy used them until the early 1950s. Jets began to replace them. The F-9F Panther, the F-2H Banshee, faster, more advanced. But for a few years, the Hellcat continued. training aircraft, reserve squadrons, target tugs. The last operational Hellcat flew in 1961. Then they were retired, scrapped, or sent to museums. Other nations used them longer. The French Navy flew Hellcats in Indochina until the mid-1950s. The Uruguayan Navy used them until 1961. Argentina received several as military aid. They operated them into the 1960s. The Hellcat's simplicity made it easy to maintain. Its ruggedness meant it lasted. Today, fewer than 50 Hellcats remain. Most are in museums. A few fly at air shows. When they appear, people stop. The sound of the R-2800 Double Wasp is unmistakable. A deep, powerful roar. The aircraft is large, heavy, but graceful. It does not look fast, but it looks solid, dependable, like a machine built to endure. Veterans who flew it remember, not with nostalgia, but with respect. The Hellcat was not a romantic aircraft. It was not sleek like the P-51 Mustang. It was not iconic like the Spitfire, but it was effective. It killed the enemy. It protected the fleet. It brought pilots home. And in war, those are the only things that matter. The captured Hellcat at Yokosuka, Bureau number 71441, was eventually found by American occupation forces in September 1945. It sat in a hangar, damaged, cannibalized for parts, Japanese markings still visible. The Americans photographed it, documented it, then scrapped it. The metal was recycled, the story forgotten, but the lesson remained. The Hellcat represented the collision of two philosophies. The Japanese believed in the superiority of the warrior spirit, skill, agility, maneuverability. The individual pilot could overcome material disadvantages through training and determination. The Americans believed in industrial power, superior machines, superior training, superior numbers. The machine and the system mattered more than individual skill. The war proved which philosophy worked. Japanese pilots, no matter how skilled, could not overcome the Hellcat's advantages: speed, firepower, protection, numbers. The Zero could outturn the Hellcat, but the Hellcat did not turn. It struck from above, fast, hard, decisive, and then it climbed away. The Zero had no answer. This was the lesson the Japanese engineers learned from the captured Hellcat. It was not just better in one area. It was better in every area that mattered in modern combat, and it was produced in numbers they could not match, by pilots they could not train, supported by logistics they could not replicate. The Hellcat did not win the Pacific War alone, but it was the weapon that made victory possible. It allowed the American fleet to operate without fear of air attack. It escorted bombers deep into Japanese territory. It destroyed enemy aircraft on the ground and in the air. It supported amphibious landings. It protected convoys. It did everything asked of it, and it did it better than any other carrier fighter of the war. In the end, the Hellcat was not about elegance or innovation. It was about effectiveness. It was a weapon designed to do a job, and it did that job superbly. The Japanese tested it, analyzed it, understood it, and knew they could not match it. That knowledge, more than any battle, signaled the end of Japanese air power in the Pacific. The F-6F Hellcat stands as a monument to American industrial might, to the power of mass production, to the value of robust engineering over elegant design, to the importance of pilot training and support. It was not the most advanced fighter. It was not the fastest or the most maneuverable, but it was the most effective. And in war, effectiveness is all that matters. When the last Hellcat was built in November 1945, the war was already over. 12,275 aircraft, 30 months of production, an average of over 13 aircraft per day, every day, for 2.5 years. That is industrial power. That is what won the war. The Japanese never had a chance. Not against that system, not against that machine, not against the Hellcat. The story of the captured Hellcat is the story of that realization. Japanese engineers saw the future and understood they were fighting the past. The Zero represented pre-war thinking. Light, agile, elegant. The Hellcat represented the future. Heavy, powerful, brutal, effective. The war moved on. The Hellcat dominated, and the Zero faded. Not because Japanese pilots lacked courage or skill, but because their machine was obsolete. And no amount of courage can overcome obsolescence. That is the lesson of the Hellcat. Technology matters, production matters, training matters, system matters, individual skill and bravery are important, but they are not enough. Not against a superior system, not against superior numbers, not against superior machines. The Hellcat proved that over and over, in every battle, in every engagement, against every opponent. It was not the most beautiful fighter, it was not the most celebrated, but it was the most deadly. And in the end, that is what history remembers. The Japanese tested the captured Hellcat and learned what they already feared. They were losing, not just battles, but the war. The Hellcat was proof, not just of American technical superiority, but of American industrial supremacy. And against that, Japan had no answer. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now and don't forget to subscribe.